Why is it that every time you see one of these for sale or free for collection, it's accompanied by a phrase like, "If this is not gone by Friday, it's going to the tip"? How can an instrument which was exported in the tens and hundreds of thousands, well known for its practicality and its affordability, have become so worthless?
So today I'm on my way to a village called Marden. It's about 15 minutes from Devizes if you're local to the area. And I asked the organist what sort of state the instrument was in, and he said the only service it needs is a requiem. Harmoniums seem to get a bad press. Maybe it's because they're clunky or noisy, or the sound from their reeds is unusual. But whatever the reason, I'm determined to prove that they're one of the most emotional musical instruments I've ever heard. Welcome everyone to the village of Marden. It's nice to see a telephone box over there converted to a book swap. This looks like a really quaint English village, but I'm in search of the church and I'm guessing it's in that direction. While I'm on my way, do remember to subscribe to my channel. It's completely free and it keeps you up to date with new videos as soon as they're available. Thank you. Well, here we are at All Saints Church in Marden. Looks incredible here. What a place to spend the afternoon. It looks very permanent, that tower, but it was actually rebuilt a couple of times because the church is on very dodgy foundations. And in this porch here, you can tell you're stepping into 1,000 years of history just by looking at that archway. That's a Norman arch. You can see it's Norman because it's curved. The later style, Gothic, was much more angular, like Salisbury Cathedral or Wells Cathedral. But we can tell this is much older. The original 17th century door lock. Can you believe that? Naturally, it's a space of complete tranquility. For me, this is the perfect place to play music. I can be completely alone. Look at the stained glass here, making the most of the natural light. But the thing that really catches our eye, that chancel arch, just like the one in the south doorway. Chancel means the area around the altar and the choir stalls. It actually comes from the Latin, which means lattice, because of the metal rood screens that would separate the choir from the rest of the church in old Italian cathedrals. Inside the chancel here, there are plenty of memorials on either side to a local family, the Haywoods. Some of these go back to the 1700s. And a much newer memorial here in memory of Margaret and Isabella Niven, Charles, their nephew, and Mabel, his wife, all of Marden Grange. That's the house just over the wall. You can see there, the house is in the stained glass window, as well as the church on the left. And look up, you can see the rolling fields of Salisbury Plain, and right at the top, the Westbury White Horse, which is a really famous landmark in this area. It's very moving. Like many churches, this one was restored by the Victorians. The work here was very, very sensitive. The Victorians sometimes have a reputation for fairly ruthless restorations of churches, but not here, because this one was carried out by Charles Ponting, who was a really dedicated churchman. He completely rebuilt the tower. He also did a huge amount to look after this Norman archway. And another feature which I suspect dated from that time was this organ. This is what we call a reed organ or an American organ. People like to call them harmoniums, but they aren't really, because harmonium is a specific patented term. This is a reed organ by Este. Este were really famous. They were set up by Jacob Este, and they were making these things from the 1840s in Brattleboro in Vermont in America, as it says there, just above the Keys. It's unbelievable that an instrument like this could come all the way from America and serve this church for about 150 years. It'd be amazing if it still works. The way you make these things sound is by pumping on the pedals with your feet. That fills the reservoir with air, and then air passes through the reeds via suction to produce the sound. It's kind of like a big version of an accordion or a harmonica even. The benefit of it is that you don't need to tune these. They're also quite portable. I can lift that fairly easily. So it has various stops, just like a pipe organ. We've got a sub-bass. So that works. Vox humana means human voice. That normally operates a spinning flap. The fact that the flap spins makes the sound undulate like the vibrato of a human singing voice. How ingenious is that? You can just about hear it hissing, but I don't know whether it actually works. No, it doesn't. The Vox humana almost never works in my experience. It can be easily fixed though. In terms of dating it, Este went under a number of different names. The company changed its name every few years. And this one's Este Organ Company, which was founded in 1872. Jacob Este died in 1890. At that time, production moved to conventional pipe organs under his son. So you can date this roughly between those two dates, which would line it up exactly with when this church was restored by Charles Ponting, 1885. It was very common at the end of the Victorian period to have organs like this introduced into churches, all over the world even. If you read Under the Greenwood Tree by Thomas Hardy, that's exactly what happens there. The whole process was simplified. Instead of having a band of musicians up in a gallery, you just had one organist, much easier to control. In fact, there was a gallery up here which was removed. Now let's try and play some music on this. I cannot wait. The whole triumphant host give thanks to God on high. Hail, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, they ever cry. That's a really, really great hymn for Trinity, the God of Abraham praise. It's actually based on a Jewish melody, which is chanted between a cantor and the congregation in the synagogue in London, but a chap called Thomas Olivers heard it in about 1770, and he turned it into his own hymn. So one thing we've got to remember about these instruments is that before recording was invented, the only way the public could hear great orchestral works like Beethoven would be on organs or pianos. That's why transcriptions became so popular at that time. You'd go to an organ recital and they'd play loads of organ transcriptions of stuff like Beethoven or Mozart or Haydn, because it's the only way it would be affordable to perform those works if you couldn't afford an orchestra. And in the same way, these tiny instruments are almost small orchestras. Many of these sounds are supposed to replicate orchestral sounds. So why don't we try some Beethoven on this organ? I have no idea whether this will work or not, but if it does, it should sound amazing.
What do you think so far? Trash or treasure? How do you think these instruments sound? There's certainly a lot of imperfection in the sound, but I suppose what I'm trying to get across with all of my videos is that, to me, the imperfection creates the beauty. Like with a lot of things, like with nature and architecture. In fact, Gothic architecture is well known for being asymmetrical. It'd look strange if everything was perfectly balanced. It would look like a castle. Part of the charm of it is that it isn't quite consistent. In the same way, some of the notes on this musical instrument don't work in the same way as other notes. Some of it's out of tune with itself, but to me, it sounds more emotional for that. It's really important. Now, keep letting me know in the comments what you think of the sounds of these instruments. Somebody did actually comment on my last video who disagreed with Florence Nightingale about organ music being soothing and healing. And he also said that one of his favourite kinds of music was Gregorian chant. Well, I completely agree. Gregorian chant is otherwise known as plain song. Plain song comes from the Latin cantus plainus, just one line of melody with an unmeasured rhythm. It's extremely moving, that kind of music. So just listen to this piece of Trinity plain song played here at Marden and let me know what you think. Personally, I think it's saving the best till last. I absolutely love the mechanical sounds you can hear from the organ at the same time as the music. Plain song from Marden, with all the creaks and groans of an old, ageing instrument in perfect harmony with nature. As well as Marden, I went to Stratford Tony, which is a village I filmed twice on my channel because I love the church there. It's technically a redundant church and it's now looked after by the church's Conservation Trust. Part of my reason for doing YouTube is so that I can promote these often overlooked village churches to many more people. If you can't go there to sign the visitor's book yourself, the next best thing is for me to show you the church and you can listen to the organ metaphorically in the pews from there. But do remember that all this costs me money. I have no sponsors. I'm not employed to do it. No church has ever paid me to do this. And I do rely on donations to keep me on the road filming these trips and paying for all my equipment. So if you enjoy my films, you might like to think about making a small donation using my PayPal link beneath the video. And maybe if you prefer to donate a different way, I can add my email address just below the film so that you can get in touch with me, and I'd be so grateful and so pleased to discuss it with you. Anyway, back to Stratford Tony. Just look at this. This is a church that many people don't even know is there. Sadly, it probably doesn't get many visitors, but it deserves to. I wanted to play another piece of plain song at Stratford Tony so you could compare the Este harmonium to the Miller harmonium from Stratford Tony. So this is one of my favourite pieces of plain song, Ave Verum Corpus, and see what you think of this on the Miller harmonium at Stratford Tony. Oh, but before you do, part of the reason for me going there actually was because the Vox Humana stop at Stratford Tony does actually work, so you'll hear a lovely undulating sound. Ave Verum Corpus. Incredibly beautiful. I'm going to be blunt and say it's one of the saddest pieces of music that I've ever heard, and it's always a pleasure to play it wherever you are. Now, let me end with a mighty, mighty hymn. This is a video I didn't produce that long ago, but because I don't have a beard and my voice is slightly higher, I look about 10 years younger. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there we are. It's a video I produced on the subject of saving pipe organs, which is what this channel is really about, and promoting interest in churches. People often visit the cathedral over there, but often the parish churches in the countryside are overlooked. Stratford Tony probably rarely gets a visitor. So let me end with a grand and mighty hymn. With this introduction.
When through the woods and forest glades I wander, and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees, when I look down from lofty mountain grandeur, and hear the brook, and feel the gentle breeze. These are the kind of words which have kept people coming to church for generations, have kept them singing, and these are the kind of hymns which will last forever. Or so you think, because here in England at least, you'd be surprised about how many organs that play these hymns are being destroyed and demolished and chucked into skips. Apparently, of all the organs dismantled here, a third of them should have been saved, but they weren't. What we need is a really grand and mighty organ, played by a live organist, and in a key which you can sing along to. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation, and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then shall I bow in humble adoration, and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art.
How Great Thou Art, one of my all-time favourites, and I hope it is yours too. That's the end of this week's video. I'll actually be producing more videos, I hope, and on different days, because it's quite good for the YouTube algorithm to spread my work to more people. On that note, make sure that you subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost a penny, and it just keeps you up to date as soon as a film is uploaded. And do remember to donate a small amount to help me out if you can. It does keep me on the road. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.